Okay, we're going to be making a spool block. You need to make 4 spool blocks. There's finishing at 6 inches each, and it will take 4 to make you a 12-inch block. So what I've got my template, and I've cut mine out on cardboard, and I traced my template on the back side of my fabric, and then I'll cut it out. Once again, I'm using directional fabric on my background, so I've got one strip cut at the 2.5 inches wide, and then I've got another that is cut at 7.25 inches so that it would have the stripes on the fabric going in the right direction. One of these will be turned on the side for the spool, and the other one will be up and down, because you've got 4 spools on here. And on these, I cut my strips 2.5 inches. I cut 2 of the spool pattern out, and the center, that's 2.5 inches. I have starched these pieces because, once again, we're working with a set-in seam, and it's got some biased edges here, so it's going to be easier if you work with starched pieces. So I have marked on the back of all of my pieces an X, and I've just used my ruler and just lined it up with the 1/4 inch edge, put a tick mark, and then lined it up, did another tick mark to get all the 2 corners that are down at where the center piece is going to be. You're going to mark all 4 corners on the center piece here, and then on the spool pieces in the background you just need to do the 2 short ends. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to sew the centerpiece to the sides of the spool. The contrasting color, that's going to be your spool. The other piece will be the background, and that's going to be your lighter one. So you're going to match where your X's are, and that is going to be where you're going to start sewing. You do not want to sew into the seam allowance. So you're going to match. Put your pin, I do a standing pin there anytime I want to get it to where my points are exact, or I've got a certain spot that I have to match. I use a standing pin. I'm not going to be putting 2 in, I'm just going to be putting 1 just to hold that there for when I sew, so that it'll come out exactly where I want and not be slipping all over the place. And get this one here marked. And then I'm going to stitch down that center seam from X to X. Back stitch at the beginning and the end so that you won't have that coming out on you. And then sew the other side also. I went into that, went beyond that X, so I need to take that out, because you do not want any stitches in that. So I'm also going to be putting my seam allowance to the spool and just finger press it. The blocks that you're working with, partial seams, I don't go press them until it's all final and done. That way it's a little bit more maneuverable when you've got to go kind of move the seams. And in this one, you'll be moving it and kind of pinching it out of the way a little bit. So I'll get this other side here. Okay, so I've got the center section here done. Once again, just finger press it to the spool. So now you're going to add your background piece. And you're going to sew the center section first. So you're going to kind of pull that seam out from where you first had it. On that first seam, just pull it out just a little bit so that you can match this up here. And you can feel the ridge where it was, so just slide that around. I'm going to put a pin to hold that where that X is right there at that seam. And then I'm also going to do the same over here. I'm going to go and kind of pull it just a little bit so I can get up there. And put a pin to help hold it. And then you're going to stitch from X to X. Do a little back stitch. Okay, and you can check it if you went a little far. Just go ahead and pull that out now. Okay, so now I'm going to go and see if I can get this on the screen here. You've got 3 pieces here now. So I'm going to kind of pull that back just a little bit. You're making kind of like a V here so that you can match the spool and the background piece together. You're going to start sewing at the X all the way out to the outside edge. So I'm going to use a pin to hold it. But you're just pinching that square out of the way so that you can get up there and stitch as close to that where that last stitch was that you can. And you're going to stitch from the center to the outside. And I'm going to go ahead and put in some back stitches. Okay, so that's got one side of it. And now I want to do the other side. So you're going to do the same thing. You just kind of, when you pivot it just a little bit, it'll help to make that V right there on that center square. Put a pin there. And just match up your raw edges. And then stitch from the center at the X out to the edge. Put a back stitch in it and go. Okay, so that's got one side done. Now you're going to go and do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so you're going to match up. You're going to make sure your seam is going to the spool ends. Match up the X right there at that seam. Put a pin in to help hold it. And that will be where you start stitching, and do the same on the other end. And then stitch it, back stitching at the beginning and the end just a little bit. Okay, and then flip it. Make that little V there so that you've got that out of the way. And pin it. When you use the starch on this, it helps, since it is on the bias, this is a 45-degree angle, so it is a true bias. It will help to keep you from stretching it. Because you don't want to stretch it, because then you're going to have a whole nother issue going on your block. And then do the other side. Okay, so now I've got my block completed. I'll go press it. I'm going to press these the center out to the spools, and then on the background it's all going to be pressed in. And so then that will take care of all of that, and you'll have everything laying nice and smooth. That'll be a it should measure at 6.5 inches, and you're going to use 4 of these to make a block, a 12-inch block. I'm going to be setting mine to where one will be going sideways and one will be going straight up and down. You could do them both or all of them going straight up and down. Let me get the others made and we'll show you the final block. Okay, I've got the spool block all finished.